Every empire believes it will last forever. Rome thought their eagles would soar eternally across 3 continents. Britain claimed the sun would never set on their dominion spanning a quarter of the earth. America declared themselves the indispensable nation destined to lead humanity into the future. Yet history tells a different story altogether.
What does it
Babylon fell in a single night when mysterious handwriting appeared on palace walls. Persia crumbled before Alexander's unstoppable advance across Asia. The mighty Soviet Union collapsed without warning, leaving the world stunned. Now, as we witness the unprecedented rise of BRICS nations challenging Western supremacy, as China's economy rivals America's for global dominance, as Russia openly defies an ATO expansion, as India emerges as a technological and military powerhouse, we must ask ourselves a crucial question that could reshape everything we understand about our future. Could this dramatic shift in global power be more than mere geopolitics? Could it represent something far more significant than economic competition? Could it be the direct fulfillment of ancient prophecies written thousands of years ago by Hebrew prophets who claimed to see the end from the beginning? The year 2025 has already marked itself as a pivotal moment in human civilization, a turning point that future historians may identify as the beginning of the end of the Western-dominated world order that has existed since World War II. For the first time in over 7 decades, a coordinated challenge to American and European global leadership has emerged with the potential to fundamentally restructure international relations across every continent. 5 major nations initially united under the BRICS banner: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, collectively representing over 40% of the world's population and controlling nearly 30% of global economic output. These aren't minor players seeking marginal influence, these are civilizational powers. With ancient histories, vast territories, enormous populations, and rapidly growing military capabilities that rival established Western nations in every measure of national strength. But this alliance extends far beyond simple economics or trade cooperation into comprehensive geopolitical transformation that threatens the very foundations of Western hegemony. These nations are systematically creating alternative institutions designed to bypass and eventually replace Western-controlled systems that have dominated international affairs for generations. They're establishing new payment mechanisms to circumvent the US dollar's dominance in international transactions. They are building development banks to rival the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. They're forming military partnerships that directly challenge NATO's presumed supremacy. They're creating their own internet infrastructure, their own satellite networks, their own financial messaging systems, their own space programs, their own artificial intelligence development, and their own technological standards that could eventually eclipse Western innovations entirely. Most significantly, they're expanding their membership with strategic precision that seems almost prophetically guided by supernatural wisdom. Recently, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates have joined their ranks as full members, while Saudi Arabia seriously considers membership alongside dozens of other nations expressing interest in closer cooperation. Turkey, a NATO member, has applied for BRICS membership, creating unprecedented tension within Western alliance structures. Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and other Southeast Asian nations are gravitating toward BRICS economic initiatives with increasing momentum. Even traditional Western allies like Mexico and Argentina have expressed serious interest in closer BRICS cooperation, suggesting fundamental shifts in global loyalties. This isn't random expansion driven by opportunistic economics. It's calculated alliance building that creates a formidable counter-hegemonic force capable of challenging Western dominance across multiple continents simultaneously. The speed and coordination of this expansion suggests planning and purpose that transcends normal diplomatic processes, pointing toward the kind of supernatural orchestration that biblical prophecy associates with end times geopolitical developments. What makes these developments particularly intriguing from a prophetic perspective is how precisely they align with biblical descriptions of end times geopolitical dangers that would invention to ancient, giving to divine revelation according to the Latin and Hebrew prophets. The prophet Ezekiel, writing over 25 centuries ago during the Babylonian exile, received a supernatural vision of future events that includes remarkably specific details about a great coalition of nations that would unite against the established order in the final period of events and divine human history before the human. The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Prophesy against him and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says, I am against you, Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. I will turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, and bring you out with your whole army, your horsemen fully armed, and a great horde with large and small shields, all of them brandishing their swords. For generations, biblical scholars have wrestled with identifying these ancient names with modern nations, studying linguistic connections, archaeological evidence, and historical migration patterns with increasing precision. Recent geopolitical developments have provided unprecedented clarity that removes much of the speculation from prophetic interpretation. Many respected theologians and historians now confidently identify Magog with the vast territories of Russia, pointing to well-documented linguistic connections between ancient Meshech and modern Moscow, between Tubal and the Siberian city of Tobolsk. The geographical descriptions in Ezekiel consistently point to regions that correspond with contemporary Russia, particularly the repeated references to forces coming from the far north relative to Israel's geographical position. Archaeological discoveries and ancient historical records support these identifications, showing clear trade routes and tribal migrations that connect biblical names with modern geographical locations. The Scythian peoples, whom ancient historians associated with the regions of Magog, established settlements and trade networks that extended from the Black Sea to Siberia, creating cultural and linguistic continuities that persist to this day. Russian historians themselves acknowledge these connections, noting how ancient tribal names evolved into modern city names through centuries of linguistic development. The precision of these geographical correlations suggests divine foreknowledge rather than human speculation, indicating that biblical prophecy provides genuine insight into future geopolitical developments, rather than vague predictions that could apply to multiple scenarios. Even more striking is Ezekiel's explicit mention of Persia as a key member of this end times coalition. Persia, Cush and Put will be with them, all with shields and helmets, also Gomer with all its troops, and Beth Togarmah from the far north with all its troops, the many nations with you. Unlike the other names that require historical and linguistic analysis, Persia needs no interpretation whatsoever. It directly corresponds to modern Iran, maintaining cultural, linguistic, and geographical continuity across millennia. The prophet also mentions Kush, which ancient sources consistently identify with Ethiopia and Sudan, and Put, which encompasses regions of North Africa, including parts of modern Libya. Gama corresponds to regions of modern Turkey and Eastern Europe, while Beth Togarmah refers to areas of modern Turkey and the Caucasus region. When we examine the current composition of the expanded BRICS alliance and their closest allies, the geographical correlation becomes remarkably precise, almost as if modern geopolitical developments are following an ancient blueprint written by divine inspiration, rather than human political calculation. The timing of these developments adds another layer of prophetic significance that cannot be ignored by serious students of biblical prophecy. The prophet Daniel, interpreting King Nebuchadnezzar's dream and receiving his own supernatural visions, spoke of a sequence of world empires that would culminate in a final king characterized by unprecedented power and global reach. He also prophesied specifically about the end times, declaring that it would be a period when many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. We live in precisely such an age, where technological advancement proceeds at exponential rates and global connectivity enables instantaneous communication across continents. Yet paradoxically, this same technology that was supposed to create a unified global civilization is instead enabling nations to challenge Western dominance in ways previously impossible. The Internet, originally developed by American military research, now enables Chinese and Russian cyber warfare against Western infrastructure. Satellite technology, pioneered by American space programs, now allows BRICS nations to communicate independently of Western systems. Financial technology, developed in Western financial centers, now enables alternative payment systems that bypass Western control entirely. The very innovations that were supposed to cement Western technological supremacy are being turned against their creators with devastating effectiveness. This ironic reversal matches biblical patterns where God uses human plans to accomplish his own purposes, often in ways that confound human wisdom and expectations. China's Belt and Road Initiative utilizes cutting-edge transportation and communication technologies to create new trade routes spanning 3 continents, deliberately bypassing traditional Western-controlled pathways. This massive infrastructure project, involving over 70 nations and representing trillions of dollars in investment, creates economic dependencies that give Beijing unprecedented influence over participating countries. The project includes high-speed rail networks, deep water ports, fiber optic cables, power generation facilities, and smart city technologies that create comprehensive infrastructure ecosystems under Chinese influence. Russia's hypersonic missile technology and advanced cyber warfare capabilities rival or exceed American military advantages, neutralizing Western technological supremacy that has existed since World War II. Their Kinjal Zircon and avant-garde hypersonic systems can penetrate any existing Western defense system, while their cyber units have demonstrated the ability to disrupt Western infrastructure, manipulate elections, and conduct information warfare with unprecedented sophistication. India's space program successfully competes with an ISA while costing a fraction of Western equivalents, demonstrating how emerging powers can achieve parity through innovation rather than mere spending. Their recent lunar and Mars missions, conducted at costs that Western space agencies considered impossible, show how technological innovation can overcome resource limitations when properly directed. Iran's drone technology and cyber warfare units demonstrate how even smaller nations can project power far beyond their geographical boundaries using advanced technological systems. Their recent strikes on Israeli and American targets using sophisticated unmanned systems show capabilities that traditional military assessments severely underestimated. Their cyber attacks on Western infrastructure, including power grids, water systems, and financial networks, reveal vulnerabilities that decades of defense spending failed to address adequately. These aren't isolated developments occurring by coincidence, but coordinated efforts among BRICS nations to create comprehensive alternatives to Western-dominated systems across every sphere of international activity. They share intelligence through secure networks, coordinate military exercises across multiple theaters, develop joint technologies that combine their respective advantages, and support each other's strategic objectives in ways that create genuine alliance rather than mere cooperation. This level of coordination among diverse nations with different cultures, religions, and historical backgrounds would seem impossible without some overarching purpose driving their unity. The fact that Orthodox Christian Russia, Hindu-majority India, Communist China, Islamic Iran, and various other religious and cultural systems can find common ground suggests supernatural orchestration rather than purely human diplomacy. Their shared opposition to Western Christian civilization, despite their own fundamental differences, mirrors biblical descriptions of end-times coalitions and is united primarily by their rejection of God's authority and their hostility toward His chosen people. The prophetic significance of currency and international trade deserves extended examination in this context because financial control represents the ultimate form of political power in the modern world. The Book of Revelation describes an end-times economic system where centralized control becomes so complete that no one can buy or sell unless they have the mark of the beast, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. While this passage traditionally refers to religious persecution and spiritual compromise during the tribulation period, its economic implications have become increasingly relevant as global financial systems achieve unprecedented integration and control capabilities. The technology now exists to monitor and control every financial transaction in real time, creating possibilities for economic coercion that previous totalitarian regimes could never have imagined. For over 7 decades, the US dollar has functioned as the world's primary reserve currency, giving America extraordinary leverage over international trade and the ability to impose economic sanctions that can devastate entire nations overnight. Countries that challenged American foreign policy objectives faced the prospect of being cut off from the SWIFT banking system, frozen out of dollar-denominated trade, and economically isolated from global markets. This financial hegemony represented a form of economic control that previous empires could never have imagined, creating what economists call weaponized interdependence that enforces political compliance through economic caution. But BRICS nations are systematically dismantling this financial dominance through carefully coordinated strategies that accelerate with each passing year. They're conducting increasingly large volumes of trade using local currencies, bypassing dollar-denominated transactions entirely. China and Russia regularly settle massive energy deals in yuan and rubles, with transactions now exceeding hundreds of billions annually. India purchases oil from Iran using rupees and gold, circumventing sanctions while maintaining crucial energy supplies. Brazil and China conduct agricultural trade worth tens of billions using their respective national currencies, demonstrating that major commodity exchanges can function without dollar intermediation. These bilateral arrangements are rapidly expanding into multilateral systems that could eventually challenge the dollar's role as the universal medium of international exchange. The new development bank established by BRICS nations now provides hundreds of billions in development, using local currencies rather than dollars. Their contingent reserve arrangement creates a mutual support system that reduces dependence on International Monetary Fund assistance. Most significantly, they're developing comprehensive technological infrastructure to support these alternative financial systems without Western oversight or control. China's cross-border interbank payment system CIPS now processes over 8 trillion yuan annually, providing a genuine alternative to SWIFT for yuan-denominated transactions. Russia's System for Transfer of Financial Messages SPFS enables domestic and international transfers without Western oversight, connecting over 400 financial institutions across multiple countries. India's Unified Payments Interface UPI processes digital transactions using advanced blockchain technology, handling billions of transactions monthly with capabilities that exceed most Western systems. Brazil's PIX instant payment system demonstrates how emerging economies can leapfrog traditional banking infrastructure through innovative technology. When these systems integrate fully and expand to include all BRICS members and their allies, they will create a comprehensive alternative to Western-controlled financial infrastructure. This parallel financial universe could eventually eclipse Western systems in terms of transaction volume, geographical coverage, and technological sophistication. The prophetic implications become clear when we consider how such systems could facilitate kind of centralized economic control that Revelation associates with end-times governance under the beast system. The prophet Isaiah warned specifically about this kind of systematic rejection of established divine order. The earth is defiled by its people. They have disobeyed the laws, violated the statutes, and broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore a curse consumes the earth. Its people must bear their guilt. Therefore earth's inhabitants are burned up, and very few are left. We witness this playing out as an international law becomes increasingly fragmented and selectively applied according to political convenience rather than consistent principles. Western nations claim to uphold a rules-based international order while frequently violating those same rules when convenient for their strategic objectives. The invasion of Iraq, without UN authorization, the bombing of Libya beyond Security Council mandates, the recognition of Kosovo's independence despite international law, and numerous other examples demonstrate Western willingness to ignore international law when it conflicts with their interests. BRICS nations respond by creating their own legal frameworks, their own international courts, their own standards of governance and dispute resolution that explicitly reject Western legal hegemony. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization provides security cooperation outside Western alliance structures, coordinating counter-terrorism efforts, military exercises, and intelligence sharing among member nations. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank offers development financing according to different principles than World Bank policies, emphasizing sovereignty and non-interference rather than conditional lending tied to political reforms. The BRICS Judicial Forum coordinates legal standards across member nations, creating alternative approaches to international law that prioritize national sovereignty over Western-defined human rights standards. These parallel institutions don't merely compete with Western systems, they are designed to replace them entirely with alternative approaches to international governance that reject Western values and priorities. This systematic creation of alternative international order fulfills prophetic expectations about the rejection of God's authority and the establishment of human systems that oppose divine law and biblical principles. This fragmentation of global authority structures mirrors biblical descriptions of end-times chaos, where traditional institutions lose legitimacy and nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. The United Nations finds its Security Council paralyzed by competing power blocks that prevent effective action on major international crises. The World Trade Organization cannot resolve disputes between major trading partners because enforcement mechanisms depend on voluntary compliance. The International Criminal Court faces rejection by numerous nations that refuse to recognize its jurisdiction over their leaders and military personnel. As Western and BRICS blocs develop competing international systems with conflicting legal frameworks, the world moves inexorably toward the multipolar arrangement that biblical prophecy suggests will characterize the final period of human history before divine intervention. Russia's specific role in this prophetic scenario demands detailed examination because of its unique in biblical end-times prophecy and its current leadership of anti-resistance movements worldwide. Ezekiel's description of Gog coming from the far north with a great company and a mighty army provides a geographical marker that unambiguously points to Russia's position relative to Israel. No other major power lies directly north of Israel with the territorial expanse, military capabilities, and political will that prophecy attributes to this northern force. Moscow's current foreign policy perfectly aligns with prophetic expectations about this northern power's behavior in the last days. President Putin's strategic alliance with Iran represents the literal fulfillment of Ezekiel's prediction that Persia would join the Northern Coalition. Their military cooperation in Syria, their joint naval exercises in the Indian Ocean and Mediterranean Sea, their coordinated opposition to Israeli interests, and their shared development of advanced weapons systems create exactly the kind of partnership that biblical prophecy describes between these specific nations. Russia's growing relationship with China establishes the Eastern Alliance that Revelation associates with end-times power struggles. Their joint military exercises involving hundreds of thousands of troops, shared intelligence operations across multiple continents, and coordinated challenges to Western influence demonstrate unprecedented cooperation between these traditional rivals. The fact that Russia and China can overcome centuries of mutual suspicion to unite against Western influence suggests supernatural orchestration rather than mere political convenience. Putin's frequent statements about creating a multipolar world order to replace American hegemony echo ancient biblical predictions about the division of global power among multiple kingdoms in the end times. His assertion that the West's period of dominance is permanently ending sounds remarkably similar to Daniel's vision of sequential empires rising and falling according to divine timing and purpose. Russia's military interventions in Georgia, Crimea, eastern Ukraine, Syria, and Africa demonstrate the kind of aggressive expansionism that prophecy associates with the northern power in the last days. Most significantly, Russia's positioning as the primary leader of anti-Western resistance creates exactly the kind of coalition that biblical prophecies describes forming in opposition to nations allied with Israel. Moscow's support for Iran's nuclear program, its arms sales to hostile regimes throughout the Middle East, its protection of anti-Israeli proxy forces like Hezbollah and Hamas, and its growing diplomatic influence in traditionally pro-Western Arab nations align precisely with prophetic descriptions of the northern powers' end-times behavior. China's emergence as a global superpower adds crucial prophetic dimensions that perfectly complement Russia's role in end-time scenarios described throughout biblical prophecy. The Book of Revelation specifically mentions kings from the East who will play decisive roles in final conflicts, referring to the kings from the rising of the sun. For many centuries, this phrase puzzled biblical scholars because no Eastern power seemed capable of challenging Western civilization militarily or economically on a global scale. China's unprecedented economic miracle has created exactly such a power with capabilities that exceed most Western nations across multiple measures of national strength. China's manufacturing capacity now dwarfs that of any other nation, producing goods that the entire world depends upon for basic survival and economic functioning. Their annual industrial output exceeds that of the United States, European Union, and Japan combined, representing a concentration of productive capacity unprecedented in human history. Their military modernization proceeds at breathtaking speed, with technological advances in hypersonic weapons, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, space warfare, and cyber capabilities that rival or exceed American advantages in many critical areas. Their economic influence extends through the Belt and Road Initiative to over 70 nations, creating dependencies and alliances that give Beijing unprecedented leverage over vast populations spanning multiple continents. When combined with their leadership role within BRICS and their strategic partnership with Russia, China's rise perfectly fulfills prophetic expectations about Eastern powers challenging Western dominance. In preparation for end-times conflicts, the speed of China's ascent from economic backwater to global superpower in less than 4 decades matches biblical descriptions of rapid prophetic fulfillment in the last days. The technological capabilities that BRICS nations are developing together carry profound prophetic implications for understanding end-time control systems that will characterize the final of human history before Crestry, the final period of human return. Daniel's vision of the fourth beast describes it as different from all the former beasts, and it had 10 horns. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. Many scholars interpret this as referring to a final world empire characterized by technological capabilities that previous civilizations couldn't imagine, with surveillance and control systems that enable unprecedented monitoring of human behavior. The BRICS nations are pioneering exactly these kinds of technologies, creating comprehensive surveillance states that monitor every aspect of human activity across their territories. China's social credit system demonstrates how digital technology can track, evaluate, and control individual citizens' actions in real time, rewarding compliance and punishing dissent through automated systems that previous totalitarian regimes couldn't have conceived. Citizens with high social credit scores receive benefits like easier access to loans, better employment opportunities, and faster government services. Those with low scores face restrictions on travel, education, employment, and social services. The system creates unprecedented social control that fulfills prophetic descriptions of end-time surveillance and behavioral modification through technological means. Russia's cyber warfare capabilities show how modern technology can disrupt enemy societies, manipulate information systems, and conduct warfare without traditional military engagement. Their interference in Western elections, their attacks on critical infrastructure, including power grids and financial systems, and their sophisticated disinformation campaigns, demonstrate capabilities that can destabilize entire nations without firing a shot. Their cyber units have penetrated Western government networks, stolen classified information, and demonstrated the ability to shut down essential services across multiple countries simultaneously. Iran's drone technology and cyber units reveal how even smaller nations can project power across continents using advanced technological systems that blur traditional distinctions between military and civilian targets. Their recent attacks on Israeli infrastructure using swarms of drones, their cyber attacks on American financial institutions, and their ability to disrupt shipping in the Persian Gulf demonstrate how technological asymmetry enables smaller powers to challenge much larger adversaries effectively. India's advances in artificial intelligence and digital surveillance provide the software expertise that complements Chinese hardware manufacturing and Russian military applications. Their development of facial recognition systems, predictive policing algorithms, and social media monitoring capabilities demonstrates how democratic societies can adopt authoritarian surveillance technologies for security purposes. Brazil's satellite technology enables global communications independent of Western systems, while South Africa's mineral resources provide rare earth elements essential for advanced technology manufacturing. When these technological capabilities are combined and shared among BRICS alliance members, they create the foundation for exactly the kind of comprehensive control systems that biblical prophecy associates with end-times governance. The ability to monitor all financial transactions, track all communications, control all information flows, and manage all economic activity represents technological power that fulfills prophetic descriptions of end-times authority in ways that previous generations could understand or imagine. The convergence of these capabilities among allied nations creates possibilities for global surveillance and control that exceed anything described in dystopian fiction, yet matches perfectly with biblical prophecies about end-time systems of governance and economic control. The economic implications of BRICS expansion extend far beyond geopolitics into territory that directly impacts prophetic fulfillment regarding global commerce and trade patterns in the last days. These nations collectively control natural resources that Western civilization desperately needs for survival and continued prosperity. Russia possesses enormous petroleum and natural gas reserves that Europe depends upon for energy security, despite ongoing sanctions and political tensions. The control over nuclear fuel, rare earth elements, and agricultural exports gives them leverage over dozens of countries that cannot easily find alternative suppliers. Brazil controls vast agricultural production that feeds populations worldwide, including soybeans, coffee, sugar, beef, and other commodities that represent essential food security for hundreds of millions of people. Their Amazon rainforest contains biodiversity and mineral resources that are irreplaceable on a global scale, giving them environmental leverage that complements their economic power. India offers massive human resources and rapidly advancing technological capabilities that Western companies increasingly depend upon for software development, customer service, and manufacturing. Their pharmaceutical industry produces generic medications that supply global markets, while their information technology sector provides essential services for Western businesses. China dominates global manufacturing across virtually every product category, from basic consumer goods to advanced technological components that Western nations cannot produce domestically in sufficient quantities. Their control over supply chains for electronics, pharmaceuticals, renewable energy equipment, and countless other essential products gives them unprecedented economic leverage over developed and developing nations alike. South Africa provides crucial mineral resources including precious metals, rare earth elements, and strategic materials essential for modern technology manufacturing. Their mining industry controls significant percentages of global production for materials that have no viable substitutes in advanced manufacturing processes. Together, these nations command supply chains that Western nations require for basic economic survival, giving them unprecedented leverage to reshape global commerce according to their preferences rather than Western demands. This economic power enables them to gradually decouple from Western-dominated trade systems while building alternative networks that exclude traditional Western partners. The prophetic implications become clear when we consider Revelation's descriptions of economic systems that can exclude entire populations from participation in global trade based on political and spiritual alignment. Iran's inclusion in the expanded BRICS alliance carries particular prophetic weight because of Persia's prominent and explicit role in biblical end times prophecy. The ancient name Persia appears directly in Ezekiel's description of the Great Northern Coalition, and Iran represents the direct successor to the Persian Empire with cultural, linguistic, and geographical continuity spanning over 2 millennia. Unlike other ancient names that require historical analysis, Persia's identification with modern Iran is absolutely certain and universally accepted by biblical scholars across denominational lines. Iran's nuclear program, their extensive support for proxy forces throughout the Middle East, their declared hostility toward Israel's existence, and their strategic alliance with Russia create exactly the kind of anti-Western, anti-Israeli coalition that biblical prophecy associates with Persia's end times role. Their recent attacks on Israeli territory, their support for Hamas and Hezbollah, their development of advanced missile technology, and their coordination with Russian forces in Syria demonstrate active fulfillment of prophetic expectations about Persian behavior in the last days. Iran's partnership with Russia through BRICS also fulfills specific prophetic expectations about cooperation between Northern Power and Persia in challenging Western influence and threatening Israel's security. Their joint military exercises, shared intelligence operations, coordinated foreign policies, and mutual defense agreements demonstrate the kind of strategic alliance that Ezekiel envisioned when describing these nations working together in the latter days. The geographic scope of BRICS expansion continues to align with prophetic expectations in ways that seem far too precise to be coincidental. Ethiopia's membership directly fulfills biblical references to Cush joining the End Times Coalition. This African nation's strategic location controlling access to the Red Sea, their growing ties with China and Russia, and their increasing distance from Western influence, match perfectly with prophetic descriptions of Cush's role in the latter days. Egypt's inclusion brings the ancient land of pharaohs and pyramids into modern prophetic fulfillment while adding crucial geographic control over the Suez Canal and significant military capabilities CS alliance to the BRICS. The United Arab Emirates' participation represents the wealthy merchants whom Ezekiel describes as questioning the Great Northern Invasion. Sheba and Dan and the merchants of Tarshish and all her villages will say to you, "Have you come to plunder? Have you gathered your hoards to loot, to carry off silver and gold, to take away livestock and goods, and to seize much plunder?" Saudi Arabia's increasingly likely membership would complete this prophetic picture by bringing the guardian of Islam's holiest sites into the anti-Western alliance, while adding Vatuan's, the Quds, Milkatain, Tent and Fine Tree campaigns. The kingdom's recent diplomatic initiatives toward China and Russia, their growing distance from American foreign policy objectives, the participation in BRICS economic initiatives, and their coordination with other alliance members suggest movement toward full membership that would perfectly fulfill prophetic expectations about Arabian Peninsula involvement in end times coalitions. What makes these developments particularly remarkable is their acceleration beyond most expert predictions and their coordination despite obvious obstacles that should have prevented such cooperation. Biblical prophecy frequently describes end times events happening with sudden rapidity, catching the world off guard as a snare that comes suddenly upon all those who dwell on the face of the whole earth. The BRICS alliance has expanded its membership influence and capabilities faster than most international relations specialists anticipated when the organization was founded less than 2 decades ago. Their challenge to dollar dominance has proceeded more aggressively than financial experts predicted, with trade volumes in alternative currencies growing exponentially rather than gradually. Their military cooperation has advanced more quickly than defense analysts expected, with joint exercises and weapons development programs exceeding initial assessments. Their technological collaboration has produced results that surprise Western intelligence agencies who underestimated the speed of innovation when multiple advanced nations coordinate their efforts systematically. This acceleration suggests we may be witnessing the rapid fulfillment of ancient prophecies about shifting global power structures in preparation for end times events that will culminate to vain down in bright intervention human affairs. The same prophetic literature that predicted these geopolitical developments also describes their ultimate purpose and inevitable conclusion. As the Apostle Paul declared, "For when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them, as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape." The question facing believers today is how to respond appropriately to these prophetic developments unfolding before our eyes with increasing clarity and undeniable precision. Jesus instructed his followers to watch and pray as end times events develop, remaining spiritually alert and prepared rather than fearful or complacent about signs that point toward his return. We must neither panic about these developments nor ignore their profound significance, but understand them as divine confirmations of biblical truth and clear indicators that God's ultimate plan for human history approaches its climactic fulfillment, according to his perfect timing and sovereign will. The same God who predicted these alliances through ancient prophets remains in control of their development and their ultimate outcome. As Daniel declared, he changes times and seasons, he deposes kings and raises up others. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. He reveals deep and hidden things, he knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with him. The rise of BRICS fulfills ancient prophecies while pointing toward the ultimate establishment of God's eternal kingdom that will replace all human empires. The BRICS alliance represents far more than an economic partnership or geopolitical realignment, seeking to balance global power between competing regional interests. It appears to constitute the literal fulfillment of ancient prophecies about specific end-times coalitions that would challenge existing world orders and systematically prepare the international stage for final prophetic events leading directly to Christ's second coming and the establishment of his eternal kingdom on earth. As these nations continue gaining strength and influence with unprecedented coordination, as their challenge to Western dominance intensifies and succeeds beyond expert predictions, as their cooperation deepens into genuine military and economic alliance with shared strategic objectives, we witness the stage being systematically set for conflicts and transformations that Hebrew prophets foresaw with supernatural accuracy millennia before these nations even existed in their current forms. For those who understand biblical prophecy and recognize these unmistakable signs of the times, the rise of BRICS serves as a powerful reminder that we live in the generation that may witness the return of Christ and the establishment of God's kingdom on earth in fulfillment of promises made to the patriarchs and prophets throughout biblical history. These aren't merely political developments driven by human ambition and national interests, but divine appointments orchestrated by the same God who controls the rise and fall of nations, according to his eternal purposes, perfect timing, and unchangeable promises to his people throughout history.